Hey everyone, Xenoid Prime here for another video, and this time I'll be showcasing my Transformers comic books. I haven't done this style in a long time for review purposes. Ever since the last thing I reviewed was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck. I think it was it could be either the structure deck or the game mat or the play mat, whichever one you want to call it. Yeah, it was 4 years ago when I got into college at the time. At a community college, but now I'll be showcasing my whole Transformers comic book collection, including Void Rivals. I was going to include the Energon Universe Special 2024 and 2025 comics, but that's another story for another day. But I just want to focus on these as like volumes, and then let's get started, shall we? Alright, the first comic I will be showcasing is Void Rivals. Written by Robert Kirkman and art by Lorenzo De Felici and colorist by Matthias Lopes. I really like the cover art that Lorenzo De Felici did because you can see Darak, Handroid, and then Solila. Mainly because this was meant to be a teaser for the Energon universe, and even though it says Volume 1 More Than Meets the Eye, because that's the start of the Energon universe. I love how Robert Kirkman's writing works, especially with the letterer, even though it's done by Russ Wooden. The panels were great. I gotta show you guys the best panel I really liked the most. Where is it? Yes, this panel kicks ass because there's like the title card, Void Rivals, and then we get to see Solila and Darak from the distance as they're about to fight each other, and then they eventually like kind of get along as like the issues go by. And even though Jetfire appears, but he's only in a small role, and the rest of the story is pretty fascinating because there's like elements from, it's mostly Transformers elements, even though like the Quintesson right here, and then there's the Quintesson Prosecutor. And then I know Skugzoid is in it, and then Shockwave made an appearance as well. I really love how Lorenzo De Felici and Matthias Lopes Lorenzo De Felici's art style looks pretty cool. I loved it so much. And the coloring looks pretty cool. And here's Skugzoid, which another G1 character, but I believe it's from the 3rd season. I need to rewatch Generation 1 someday, but yeah, it's a really good comic book. It's a really cool volume, and I loved it. It's a good start for the Energon universe. And Robert Kirkman is the perfect guy to just simply write anything that's comic related. I am looking forward to his run on the Transformers Skybound comics after Daniel Warren Johnson's run, which is, and speaking of Transformers, that's the next thing I'm going to be talking about after this. But that's pretty much it, and I like the back cover of Jetfire waking up from the planetoid, or it could be like an abandoned planet. I don't know, but it's interesting that Darak and Solila just met up with the big guy. As you can see, the Energon universe starts here, because even though this is the first start of the Energon universe, so I'll give this one a 9 out of 10. Pretty cool start for the Energon universe. Next up is Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers. Unfortunately, I don't have it as volume 1 because even though I have 6 issues, it's technically the first volume. So I like the first issue. I really like the first issue a lot because it's a really good start of the Transformers story. As you can see, the arc, the panel, like the amalgam, this shot right here, it's Apocalypse Now reference, but I also love the arc crashing towards Earth, which is a G1 reference. I love how Daniel Warren Johnson's writing and art style looks pretty cool. I can't believe that he killed off Bumblebee and Jetfire, but brought back to life in volume 2, spoiler alert. Yeah, it's really good. I really like the first volume because it reminds me of like the first episode of the G1 cartoon, but different take. Oh wow, this panel is really sick. Yeah, at least Optimus Prime has a lot in depth. in terms of character development. But Starscream in this first arc of the Energon universe is psychotic, like complete psychopath. Yeah, this is my favorite shot right here with like Optimus Prime looking through the forest and stuff, and then he just accidentally killed a deer. Which, yeah, it's sad, and I love the chemistry between Spike and Optimus. It's really cool. You get to see like he explains Cybertron. Yeah, everything is so perfectly well done, and I love how Danny Warren Johnson brings his art style. Even the color arts, like these as an example, like this one, issue 3 as an example, issue 4, issue 5, and issue 6. Most of the cover arts are so fantastic. I love how Danny Warren Johnson did a kick-ass cover art. It's really amazing. Oh wait, oh crap. Oops, I skipped an issue. Because issue 3, this is like the most emotional issue I started to cry because of like I love Optimus Prime getting into a knockdown drag out death match with Skywarp, but that's not the saddest part. Where is it? This is the saddest part where Spike dies, and then, well, he didn't die. He just got shot. Sorry about that. He got shot, but he was in a coma. And this part was so brutal. I like how Danny Warren Johnson combines the Bayverse and G1 elements of the story. It's pretty cool. I liked it. Yeah, and the rest of the issues, it just like goes on and on. Like everything looks pretty cool. Like the writing and everything is so amazing. And this shot with Optimus Prime containing Megatron's fusion cannon, that is like the most iconic scene I really liked. I really love the most, and it's so cool. And then for issue 5 is like really badass, and freaking Optimus Prime destroyed Reflector. And then my favorite panel is literally Devastator making his appearance. And yeah, it's amazing. And then issue 6 is, I think it's one of my favorite issues compared to along with issue 1. And this part where Optimus Prime pushes Devastator, will tackle, I can't even tell the movement, but it looks pretty cool. Yeah, and I also love this part where Optimus Prime was like, you know this song, which is because according to the commentary letter section, Danny Warren Johnson said that it was meant to be The Touch by Stan Bush, but Hasbro was like, no, you can't use the song for copyright reasons, which is understandable. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh man, Starscream is getting squashed. Not to death, but got injured. And I like this shot where Optimus Prime looks up in the sky. And it concluded Volume 1, or the first arc. So yeah, I really loved this amazing arc of Danny Warren Johnson's run of Transformers. It's really cool, and I'm giving this one a 9.5 out of 10. It's a perfect story. Alright, next volume. Volume 2 of the Transformers Skybound comics. I love the cover art with the Elita 1 standing on top of like the ruins of Cybertron, and it says Transport to Oblivion. And this back cover is amazing. Optimus Prime duking it out with Shockwave and Soundwave, and then Thundercracker appears, and then Scrapper. I almost said Skywarp by accident, but it's Scrapper and Jazz Statement. But the main reason why I think this volume is my favorite volume of all times, because not only the fact that I like Danny Warren Johnson's writing, but the artwork by Jorge Corona was amazing. Like the writing as well as how Jorge Corona draws the characters is so perfect. I love it. And this is my favorite panel where Optimus Prime walks inside the Ark. And yeah, I love how Jorge Corona's drawing on the Autobots and Decepticons. It's amazing to see how things turn out for volume 2. It's cool that Shockwave is the main villain of the second volume. I loved it. It's amazing. And I have to agree with Moonbase 3, who's a content creator, because this artwork kind of does reminded me of Jeff Senior, who is the artist of the UK version of the Marvel Comics Transformers. If you guys don't know who Jeff Senior is, what I mean by is like, Jeff Senior's art style, well, not really Jeff Senior's art style, but Jorge Corona's art style does seem a little similar to Jeff Senior's artwork. But as I was going to say about Jeff Senior, Jeff Senior is the previous collaborator with Simon Furman on the UK and US version of the Marvel Comics Transformers, by the way. And back on topic. It's pretty cool, and I love how Beachcomber gets a more prominent role in the Skybound comics and everything. Elita 1 is just so resentful towards Optimus, and it's like, wow, this shot right here is so fantastic, where Cybertron is in Earth's orbit. But other than that, this is a really good volume. I love Jorge Corona's artwork, and Ultra Magnus that panel looks pretty cool, pretty badass, but sadly Ultra Magnus just got scared away. So yeah, it's a really good story, and I loved it, and this is my favorite panel, and this by far is my favorite volume. Daniel Warren Johnson's writing and Jorge Corona's art style, and even the colorist by Mike Spicer. This volume is a solid 10 out of 10. I really loved it. It's pretty good. Yeah. And I just can't get over this back cover. Man, it's so good. Next volume, Transformers, Volume 3, Combiner Chaos. Once again, I really love this volume. I mean, I like Volume 2. Well, technically, I love Volume 2 because it's arguably my favorite volume out of all of the Transformers volumes. But Volume 3 was way epic. I love I like the back cover of like Optimus Prime on Cybertron, which I love Jason Howard's artwork. But in case you guys have already known or don't know, because Daniel Warren Johnson. Sorry that I just sounded a little gibberish when I say his name. He's the writer. But Jorge Corona did some artwork on like the rest of the story, but some of the guest artists were Jason Howard and Ryan Audley, even though Mike Spicer was colorist, and Sarah Stern did the coloring too as well, as you can see. And then Annalisa Leone did the color. I'll show you guys what Ryan Audley's artwork looks like. Yeah, this is like the portion from the Energon Universe special. The segment. Yeah, because this Transformers segment from the Energon Universe special 2024 comic was inversed into Volume 3, which explains how Megatron was alive. I really love Ryan Audley's artwork. Because even though Ryan Audley's art style was a lot similar to Invincible, I think Russ Wooten did the lettering, but it could be Audley that did the lettering job. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I love how Audley's work is more G1 accurate. And then I love how Jason Howard's art style looks pretty cool, because this portion right here is just focusing on Starscream's mini arc of how like his origin came to be and how he formed his entire brigade, which is freaking awesome. Where's this panel? I love the panel right here where Starscream was like saying his speech and how he formed the Decepticon brigade. Yeah, Jason Howard's artwork looks pretty cool. The rest of the art style was done by Jorge Corona. Once again, I really dig Jorge Corona's art style because mainly it focuses on like 3 different stories, like the Autobots that are on Earth. I'll show you. Freaking Optimus Prime went berserk for some reason. And the whole Decepticon civil war going on between Starscream's brigade and Soundwave's Decepticon. I love the shower Bruticus combined. And then Cliffjumper and Elita's team were on Cybertron just to create... I'm just skipping through. Well, before that, the one bot that stopped the Decepticon civil war is Megatron himself. Yep. Thundercracker heading to the Ark trying to free Skywarp. And then RC and Beachcomber along with Spike and Carly, they're on their way to go look for Ultra Magnus, even though I know the story too much. Yeah, everything looks pretty cool, and I love how, yeah, the Combiner Chaos, man, it's literally Combiner Wars stuff. I really love this. Oh, this story is so fantastic. And I felt bad for Ultra Magnus being captured again but this time G.I. Joe instead of Shockwave, because Shockwave died in Volume 2. And then of course Megatron stopped the Decepticon Civil War. Yeah, he's really huge. But this shot was so cool. And I love how the cliffhanger ends with Megatron's shadow as he's above the tower. But yeah, overall, it's a really good story. It has like really different subplots, and then the main plot point with Optimus Prime. Look, their goal is like defend the humanity, trying to save humanity and all that kind of stuff from the Decepticons, even though they're on an ongoing civil war. I love how Danny Warren Johnson's cover art looks pretty cool, even though Starscream was brutally beaten by Soundwave from Volume 2, so I love the back cover. But it's a really good story, and I'm really looking forward to get Volume 4, which concludes Daniel Warren Johnson's run on the Transformers. So I'll give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Really good story, but I love Volume 2 better. Next up, Transformers Worst Spot Ever, Meet Ballpoint. I really like this graphic novel because the artwork done by Mars Jr. was so cartoony, but it's a good thing, but in a good way. I love how it's a separate story from the mainstream Transformers story. Well, even though it's set on the Energon universe, but this one is a standalone story that's not part of the Energon universe. It's part of the Worst Spot Ever series. Because this graphic novel was intended to be the first start of the Worst Spot Ever series, but I'll have to wait and see what the future holds for that one. But this character, Ballpoint, oh man. He just literally transforms into a pen. Yeah, meeting and then hanging out with the Decepticons, that's like in the vein of The Office, but more Transformers stuff. And the Decepticons looks pretty... I mean, I love how Mars Jr. incorporated his design with the Decepticons and then the Autobots. The coloring looks pretty cool, even though it reminds me of like the earlier campy tone of the Transformers G1 cartoon, but more kid-friendlier, more lighter tone. I love the part where Ballpoint drew the eyes and then the mustache on Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. That's pretty funny. But yeah, it's a really good. It's a pretty funny story because Ballpoint went on from being a Decepticon to an Autobot. Yeah, I love this shot where Ballpoint gets the Autobot insignia, which I can definitely see him transformed into. See him as an Autobot instead of a Decepticon. And I love the end where freaking Ballpoint just said wrote space farts. Man, that was so fun, hilarious, but everything looks pretty cool. I love how the instructions where it says like how to draw Ballpoint with Aurora and Steve. The names of the Autobot and Decepticon insignia. But as an artist, for me, I would love to easily draw this guy right here, Ballpoint. Sorry about the light, the shadow. And I love how the character sketches were done by Mars Jr. Like, it looks pretty cool. I love it. But overall, it's a pretty good story. At least it's separate from the Energon universe, because this is a standalone story, and I absolutely love Ballpoint. I'll give this one a 10 out of 10. Pretty good, solid standalone Transformers story. Alright guys, I'm down to 2 volumes left. And I saved this one for last because the two of the volumes are Transformers related, but they're not Skybound. It's IDW, as you guys are quite familiar with, so. Alright, next volume. Transformers Secrets and Lies. Transformers 84 Secrets and Lies. I absolutely dug this comic a lot because I'm a G1 fan of the Transformers story. And I absolutely love this cover art done by Guido Guidi. Because even though Simon Furman was the writer and Guido Guidi was the artist, and I love the back cover art of the volume, even though this was drawn by Jeff Sr. But I absolutely grew up with the IDW comics. And then and some with the Dreamwave comics. Well, it's only two of the Dreamwave comics, but that's another story for another time. But yeah. So I'll show you guys the pages. Yeah, Guido Guidi did a fantastic job drawing. I love the color. I absolutely love the coloring. There's a really cool drawing of Shockwave. But this was done by another artist because you can see the signature right there. But that's not by Guidi. I think it was either Senior or someone else. Or it could be Casey Keller or any artist. I don't remember. Is it Casey Keller? I'm trying to think. But anyways, back on topic. Yeah. Mainly this story was meant to be like taking place in the Marvel Comics G1 continuity. And I love how Guidi's art style looks pretty cool, especially with the coloring, because it kind of reminds, like his art style was drawn a little similar to Don Perlin's art from the Marvel Comics. As you can see, the Ark is leaving Cybertron. Yeah, it's really cool. But the main focus is Punch and Counterpunch, even though I think Punch is an Autobot or discipline. Yeah, I don't remember, but it's focusing on the character who switched sides, and then Optimus Prime and other Autobots played a prominent role in this story. Simon Furman's writing was interesting, was pretty cool, even though he's obviously the mainstay of the Transformers story. Well, he worked with IDW since Infiltration, which I don't have Infiltration. But I will get it someday. But overall, I really love the coloring. Well, again, this kind of reminds me of Don Perlin's art on the Transformers, from the Transformers Marvel Comics. And I absolutely loved it. Guido Guidi did a fantastic job on the drawing. And Simon Furman's writing is perfect, even though he worked on Transformers since the 80s with the Marvel Comics. Both the UK and the US version. I love this shot of Megatron. Yeah, Casey W. Collar. There you go. Yeah, that's the artist that not only did this one with Straxus and then Ultra Magnus from behind, and I think that's Fortress Maximus, and there's Springer. Yeah, Casey W. Collar also did this one for Shockwave. But yeah, overall, this is a really good IDW Transformers comic. And the coloring looks fantastic. The story looks pretty cool. Even the characters have something in depth. Oh, I love this part where Megatron and Grimlock were beating the crap out of each other. But yeah, it's a really fascinating comic. But man, I also love this artwork by Nick Roach. Yes, that Nick Roach of all people who did with Counterpunch, Shadow right there, and then we get to see the Ark leaving, and then Optimus Prime and Megatron in their Marvel Comics G1 colors. Yeah. So sorry about that. It's Nick Roach's. Well, Jeff Senior's art style. And Nick Roach's art style on the Dinobots, kind of similar, but not too much. But I love how Nick Roach draw the Dinobots as well. Yeah, Nick Roach is a really good artist. And if you guys have already known Nick Roach, he's known for like, he wrote like, I think he did drawings with the Spotlight Transformers comics. And then the most notable IDW comic I know that he worked on was The Last Stand of the Wreckers and its sequels. But this is the writer's commentary by Simon Furman. Because this volume has like covers 4 issues of this miniseries. I love this art of Star Saber. And overall, this is a really good comic. I love how this is written by one of my favorite comic book writers who wrote the Transformers lore. Well, not the entire lore. Because Bob Budiansky wrote the Transformers lore before Simon Furman took over and did some parts that are included in the Transformers mythos. But overall, this is a really good comic. I really loved it. Guido Guidi's art style, once again, it's perfect. And Simon Furman's writing was amazing. But yeah, but I was right about this art because I already mentioned this before, that this art was done by Jeff Senior. Because I love how each of the colors, I love how each of the comics and the pages included some of the art that are done by Guidi, KCW Collar, Nick Roach, and some other artists and other artists. Just like I mentioned, but yeah, I love Guidi's artwork. But overall, I'll give this one, again, 10 out of 10. Love this comic. Would love to read this again. Time to time again, because, yeah, I love this comic and I love IDW's run. But, moving on. Alright guys, this is the last volume I'll be covering, and then that's a wrap, because this volume I'll be having is a special treat for you guys, and this is by far my favorite volume of all time, along with The Secrets and Lies and Transformers Volume 2 of the Skybound comic. So here, last one is the second volume of Transformers All Hail Megatron. I was lucky to buy this one because I found it at my local store, which is Bookman's. So All Hail Megatron, I heard positive things about this comic, and when I read it, it's really great. I loved it. And I love how the cover art was, to me, I feel like it's typography. And I get to see the Autobots that are like charging in against the Decepticons, and I love how the title page looks pretty cool. And I love the back cover of Optimus Prime's shadow. But yeah. But need I remind you that this was literally around the time Shane McCarthy took, I wouldn't call it he took over the Transformers run, because right after Simon Furman somewhat left the Transformers, he's done with the Transformers writing stuff at the time, writing duties at the time after the Revelations story, Shane McCarthy decided to do All Hail Megatron. And once again, I love the artwork. This was done by Guido Guidi. To be fair, I really love Guido Guidi as an artist, because he's my favorite. Well, he's always been my favorite comic book artist since I read the Dreamwave Transformers comics, which is Transformers Energon. I have the volume of Transformers Energon, but sadly it's laid dormant at my storage unit. But yeah, I love how Guido Guidi's art style looks pretty cool. Shane McCarthy's writing was fantastic. Man, everything in this comic was so phenomenal. And it's even brutal, because it literally breathes in the bleak. Because the Autobots are trying to fight back against the Decepticons after the Decepticons won their war. But Guido Guidi's art style in this is pretty cool. Even though this guy, Drift, originally Deadlock, was created by Shane McCarthy, because Shane McCarthy created Drift, even though Drift was an original character from the IDW Comics Transformers around the time when All Hail Megatron was published in 2009, but then became the definitive character we all know and love, which I love Drift. But this art style was different because I believe KCW Collar did this art style. That's Spike, by the way. Even though the humans are trying to hide from the Decepticons, you can see Soundwave walking through downtown of New York. Yeah, I love how they're like some and freaking Soundwave screaming for avenging Frenzy's death. I almost said Rumble, but Frenzy's. And this art style was back to Guido Guidi's artwork. But later on, some of the art duties were done by EJ Su. Because I think this one was done by Su. Well, technically a few of them were done by Guidi, and then some of them were done by EJ Su later on. I love this part where Omega Supreme is battling Devastator, which is a generation lore, I know. But yeah, Optimus Prime's drawing looks pretty cool. And this story is freaking fantastic. I loved it. But yeah, this was done by AJ Su. Oh no, but I felt bad for Hunter Onion. Oh no. And Sunstreaker was there, and then Sideswipe leaving towards the building. And that ends volume 2. And I absolutely love the art gallery section of the second volume of All Hail Megatron. Graphic design mixed with... It's literally graphic design inspired. It's really cool. I loved it. Yeah, Casey Collar did the artwork as well. Hell yeah, Don Perlin, let's go. Yes, that Don Perlin of all people who did the artwork on the Marvel Comics Transformers, the US version. And I love how Guidi did his sketches on Starscream. Because I believe he did sketches with other characters too. Yeah, Guido Guidi did some concept sketches with other characters like Sideswipe, Cup, Hot Rod, Viewfinder. I think that, yeah, Reflector, but they have names, which is Viewfinder and Spyglass. That makes sense. I wish Reflector would have been... I was like, they combined into one character instead of like separate, but yeah, that's just me. Well, it's a good thing he died in the Skybound comics. Spoilers. Well, I already covered issue 5 like earlier in this video. And there's Frenzy. You know, it's obvious that Frenzy and Reflector are meant to be wasted potential characters, that they died too easily, especially in the Skybound comics, because Optimus Prime brutally killed Reflector and Frenzy to death in issue 4 of the Skybound comics. And yeah, there's a back of Megatron having put Optimus Prime's head on the spear. And I should get volume 1 of All Hail Megatron someday. But overall, this is a really good story, and I absolutely love Guido Guidi's art style, along with other artists like KCW Collars and EJ Su's art style. Or I could be wrong, because I think there was another artist. Well, Josh Percham did the coloring. Same with Chris Carter, James Brown, and then other colorists. But sorry, no, it's not KCW Collar. It's actually Robert Diaz and Emiliano Santa Lucia. Yeah, I thought it was KCW Collar did the artwork, but no, it was the other artist, Robert Diaz and Emiliano Santa Lucia. And I know EJ Su did the artwork as well, but there are most of the artwork was done by Guidi. Once again, my favorite artist. But overall, I'll give this one, again, a 10 out of 10. And out of all my favorite volumes, my number 1 volume out of all the Transformers volumes from both the IDW and Skybound comics would have to be this one, Transformers Secrets and Lies. Transformers 84 Secrets and Lies. That's like my number one favorite comic volume of all time. My second favorite is easily Transformers Volume 2 of the Skybound Comics. Because I love Daniel Warren Johnson's writing, I love Jorge Corona's art style, Mike Spicer's coloring was fantastic. I love it. And number 3 is the second volume of All Hail Megatron. That's it. Guido Guidi's art style, E.J. Su, and other artists I mentioned before, which I'm probably going to forget. I love it so much. And I love the cover art as well. And there you have it. These are all the comics I have for showcasing. And you guys are probably wondering, where are you recording? So this is my studio room right here. It includes all of my artwork and everything. But everything you see here in my drawer contains like my sketchbooks, markers. On top there's like charcoal stuff, pencils. And then my drawers, there's like storyboard books, brushes and everything. And then this drawer, it has like colored pencils, ink pen, everything. But I'll do a tour sometime around in the future. I just wanted to show you guys like where am I recording my showcasing video at. But yeah, just a heads up that I'll be doing a studio tour in the coming weeks for the future. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys want more videos from me, click the bell icon for notifications. And make sure you subscribe and click like for this video. And that's all I have for now. I'm glad. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.